All right. So welcome everyone to our workshop today with Max Mihro at the Rec Innovation Lab at San Diego Miramar College. And we will be today talking about various topics that Max is just an expert on, and most of you have seen him before. He's been here a couple of different times, and he and I were talking about what we should what we should focus on next. And I think you guys are going to really like this today. So with that, I will not talk your ear off. And even though I'm in a chatty mood, I will pass it on over to Max, who will take it away. Welcome,
Max.
Max.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back. So yeah, I'll give a little intro about myself in case anybody doesn't know me. My name is Max Mirho. I run a show on the internet called EntrepreNerd, where I basically every week we hop on. It's on Twitch, it's on LinkedIn, it's on Twitter, it's everywhere, it's on YouTube, and we just get a few people, we hang out, and we try to build something, and we try to build a small business or a small project or an initiative, or we try to solve a problem, or we experiment with entrepreneurship on small scales to kind of break down the barriers to actually building something yourself, right? Because most of the time, the actual building process and setting something up and launching it takes very, very little time, and it's overestimated and it's blown out of proportion. And the concept of raising money, of hiring people, of all these like things that you're gonna have to deal with later on, end up bogging down the typical kind of concept of entrepreneurship that you see everywhere else. So we make it really simple. We boil it down, we have fun with it, and we experiment live and try to get something done or finish something every little live stream every week. And so we're getting better at that. But that's my shtick. It's called EntrepreNerd, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we just love, I love his, I love the podcast, and I love the method. It's very similar to what we do in entrepreneurship education through the rec here. Work on startups with a systematic approach of iterating and faking it till we make it sometimes, and doing what we need to do to test it out in the market. So I love what you're doing, and if you guys haven't yet checked out his, his podcast, I really highly recommend doing so. So
I appreciate that.
That's it. I'll stop talking, I promise.
You're fine. You can interrupt me anytime.
As long as I'm saying good things about you, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, why not? But feel free to anybody to jump in. If you want to make a note, you can totally say something out loud. Just drop it in the chat. I talk really fast. I'm used to live streaming just me. So like my pacing is always like constantly have something happening. There's no dead space on air, right? So I end up talking really quickly, and that's just kind of how I am as a person. So it might be hard to interrupt me. I apologize. But if you drop something in the chat, I'm used to responding to messages. And so I should be able to get to what you're asking really quickly. But today, we are going to be talking about organic promotion of whatever you're building. Organic content promotion, organic promotion of maybe a landing page or a website, anything in that kind of space, just getting people to organically find what you're making. And organic just means like not paid advertising, right? Not running ads or not doing Facebook ads or paid promotions or sponsorships or anything like that. Just using the internet in a free way to get your stuff out there and get it in front of people, right? So this is going to apply to mostly everybody. Like whatever you're building, you can probably pull some content from that, and you can use it in a couple different ways. For me, this is really, really important because all of my stuff is content, right? So it's going to be more valuable for me. Anybody that has a focus on content, on making videos, on writing articles, on anything in that kind of space where there's a content piece, maybe like a newsletter associated with whatever you're building, if that's your product or it's like near your product or adjacent to your product, great. If you have a blog associated with your website or whatever you're selling or whatever you want to sell, also applies. But if you don't have content whatsoever at all, there are still a few ways that you can kind of use this methodology. But for me, it's especially important, right? Because I have all content. And so getting my content out into the world is incredibly important. It's like the most important thing. Otherwise, nobody's going to find me, right? So just as kind of a baseline, initially, most people start on a single platform. right? You start a blog on your website, right? And you just blog. Or you have an Instagram profile and you use that Instagram profile to try to gain followers, right? And the more followers you have, then hopefully the more people check out your product. For me, I started on LinkedIn and I was pretty just kind of embedded on LinkedIn. Great, right? But the power of using the rest of the internet, there's tons of other places on the internet that you can showcase and talk about and build a following around what you're doing. And the nice thing is it's not like with LinkedIn for me, that took up a lot of my time. Posting on and really being aggressive on one social media platform takes a lot of time, or writing a blog takes a ton of time. Making content in general, very exhausting. It takes a ton of time, experience, experimentation, everything. But this with this kind of stuff that I'm going to be talking about, you don't need to make new content for every platform. Most people I know are like, oh, I would be on Instagram, but that's a whole other social platform. That's a whole other thing. Or I would be writing blog articles, but I'm already so busy on LinkedIn or whatever. The nice thing about this is you create, ideally, if possible, you create one piece of shareable content and you spread that across everything. And you launch it and you post it in different ways across different platforms, but it all kind of leads back to the same main point, which is your website or your product or your newsletter or whatever that is. So this is a little bit general. It's going to make a little bit more sense in a second. I'm going to use myself as an example to kind of start, and then we'll kind of bleed off into more kind of general terms from there. But let me share my heckin' screen. Ooh, there's the share button. So there. I was looking up the Castle movie. Sorry. Okay, so this is my little website. This is on my website builder. It's on Webflow. I'm just going to kind of show you what my little, this is just an example to show you how many of these things that I posted. I have a little CMS collection of items over here. This isn't important technically, don't worry about it. But these are all the different little things that I've launched. These are all the articles. I post one of these every week on Monday. I write it on Sunday night. I wrote this most recent one last night, How to Launch an Agency. And then I posted it this today, right before this, at like noon. I started and I took like 2 hours just to post it everywhere. And this is what it looks like. It is How to Launch an Agency. It is a little page. It is designed poorly. It really doesn't matter. But there are a bunch of these. I have a linked live stream. The main piece of content is my live stream, right? I make live streams every week. I really enjoy those. They're like an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's tons and tons of relatively valuable information. It depends on what you're doing, but I would like to think it's valuable information. Great, right? I then write a whole dang article every Sunday night to link to that piece of content, so that associates with that piece of content. So I kind of doubled up. I have the live stream. I made a highlight set. I made a highlight series of it, and then I write a big article about what we learned, etc. Right? And that works really well. But this is my block content. This is my large form, like whatever you want to call it. This is my baseline piece of content that I want to share everywhere, right? Because it's on my website. It has a little subscribe for more entrepreneurship experiments every week kind of thing, right? There should be a conversion on the main piece of content. And whatever. Everything else is just kind of personal to me and it doesn't necessarily matter. But what matters is there is a place where you make a piece of content. It could be just a YouTube link, right, to a YouTube video. If that's your main piece of content, it could be a link to an Instagram post, whatever it is, whatever your main platform is. Ideally, it would be on a website where you can sell your thing, right, your service or your product. But you have a baseline piece of content, right? And I'm going to link this in the chat just so you can kind of see what it looks like. Also, I should pull up the chat because I don't have it up right now. So this is what it looks like. This is what I launched today. I wrote it last night, launched it today. Very simple, not complicated. It took me a little while, but it just, whatever content that you're making or whatever content you think you could make, it should be in a place, right? There should be a main hub. And for me, that ended up being the website. It used to be LinkedIn, ended up being the website. And so here's what we do. I want to get a ton of people to this website, right? I want to get a ton of people to this link, How to Launch an Agency, because I just did a live stream and I just wrote a dang article and I have a ton of stuff on this. And I think this is valuable, right? I want to get this out to people. I could run ads on this page, whatever. But if I want to share this with existing communities online and find people that might be interested in my stuff, here's how you do that. There are a ton of different places to do that. And just to kind of show you where I got the information, if you want to learn a little bit more, actually, I'll go over that later. That'll be at the end. We're just going to run through most of the examples that I use. Here is a little list of all the different things that I post on. I have 85 tabs of Facebook groups that are associated with entrepreneurship and freelancing and anything remotely like similar, a few LinkedIn groups and a Discord group. And then I have 5 subreddits, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, a couple forums that I've found, 3 forums, and then product hunt, and then a bunch of other things in link sharing. And link sharing is super interesting, and I'll get to that. But I have a ton of different links saved because every week I want to push this stuff out, right? But you can't just copy paste a link and post it on everything, right? Posting on forums, posting on social media, posting it everywhere. It's not going to work because people on the internet absolutely despise, especially on Reddit, self-promotion. They hate it. It just doesn't work. Anytime you see somebody post like, hey, check out my thing, right? Unless they're like a really, really tight friend of yours and you've known them forever and you're actually genuinely interested, like predisposed to be interested in what they're working on, you don't care, right? Nobody cares. And so you're more likely to get crapped on the internet than anything else. But there are ways to use each platform in a nice way that works and does actually convert to stuff to your page, right? So for this one, I always pull up Google Analytics. If you have a site or anything like that, or you made a landing page, you can link it to Google Analytics. It's super, super nice and easy. It just tells you where everybody is coming from to your website, right? So I usually refresh it every once in a while. I have it set to just today. And let's see if there's any change on all the things that I was linking to. Yeah. So just today, just because I was posting it everywhere, I've gotten 40 people to visit my website. Not too bad. Pretty good, right? I'm quite happy with it. We got 2 people from Twitter. We got a couple people from Y Combinator. We got some mostly from LinkedIn because my LinkedIn audience is rather large. So that makes sense. But people are visiting and I can see which places are working really nicely. That's just a baseline. You don't have to do that, but it's nice to know for me, right? And I have a website, so it works. So let's start with Reddit. The Reddit and then a couple of forums online. Forums are literally the places on the internet where your people are, right? If you are selling a baby bottle, I always use the baby bottle example, I don't know why. If you're selling like a really great baby bottle and you have a baby bottle startup, right? Then you should be in and every forum that relates to feeding your kid, right? Or early child development or parenting, right? Or things like that, right? If you have a app that helps dog walker, like an Uber for dogs app, something like that, right? You should be in the dog walking. You should be in the outdoor pet care groups, like right, stuff like that, right? And that relates to Facebook groups, that relates to forums that you can find online, and then Reddit, which is just the biggest like hub of forums you can find anywhere, right? So let's start with Reddit. Some of my Reddit is weird. Like Reddit is the weirdest place by far out of anything else that I've experimented with. Reddit is very, very weird, and they hate self-promotion the most by far. So it's going to take some experimentation. Everything else I can kind of tell you what works and how to do it, but with Reddit it's going to take some experimentation. The only thing you need to remember is that if you try to link to something and say, "Hey, check out my thing," in any Reddit post anywhere, you will be immediately banned from the subreddit. It's insane how, unless the subreddit is designed for that and is designed for self-promotion. It's insanely aggressive how picky people are on Reddit about you self-promoting yourself. So what you do is you try to add value up front, right? Instead of saying, hey, I wrote an article, check it out. Or hey, I did a live stream, check it out. Even if it's clearly valuable, people are gonna get pissy about it, right? It just doesn't work. It's just the culture on Reddit hates this kind of stuff. So what you do is you add value up front, right? And don't try to post it on too many subreddits all at once. There's like 5 for me. There's entrepreneur, startups, entrepreneur ride-along, sweaty startup, and a couple of other ones that I'm kind of experimenting with. But those are like the 4 that work for me. And I try not to post on more than 2 because I'm worried that people will see and then it'll just kind of get kicked down, right? But because I would imagine there's some bleed over between the 2. But I try to add value up front. And so quite literally, what I did is I took my article, right? This big dang article, it's like 600, 700 words that I wrote last night that I think is decent, right? That decently describes what we learned on the live stream and what we learned this week and what is valuable to share. I copy pasted the entire dang thing and I just pasted it right into Reddit, right? So all of it is there. You don't even need to go to my website to learn everything that I learned this week, right? All the value is upfront, right in your face, on the platform that people are staying on. You're not encouraging people to leave the platform whatsoever or self-promoting by any means, right? Now, how do you get people to your website, right? Because if you're just copy pasting this, then why would people care? Well, for me, I also have this little video that I can embed on Reddit. So I occasionally will try. I've tried before and sometimes it's worked a little bit. I've dropped a little link like, by the way, there was a live stream that I did, kind of cool, check it out. And I try to do it in the middle so it's not like overly aggressive, but it just, I've gotten like, I got one post that did really, really well. It's got like 100 upvotes. And then that same post on a different subreddit got me banned for 2 weeks. It's really, really picky. It's really hypocritical. It's a really, really weird place. If you can always make sure your Reddit posts are going to do well, then you probably it won't matter that you can self-promote, right? But it's so hard to figure out what works well on Reddit. It's such a weird community, so I'm still experimenting with it. But the way that I self-promote is by a clever little hack. I usually have one of my friends comment on the post and being like, I mentioned that I did a live stream, right, in the post, or I mentioned that I wrote a blog article, or I mentioned that there's other stuff that I'm doing in this kind of sphere, right? I have a product also that's around this. It's kind of interesting. So I've spent a lot of time in this space. Say something like that, just a little like, by the way, right? And try not to say it at the end, try to say it near the end. Like right here, I said, that's it. The initial setup process shouldn't take you more than a day, talking about how to start an agency. That's what the article is about. The initial setup process shouldn't take you more than a day. I almost finished it on a 90-minute live stream. In quotes or in parentheses, let me know if you're curious about it, right? So what I would theoretically have people do, I didn't do it this time because I wanted to see if the post would do well first. But I would just have one of my friends comments, or a separate account that I have, comment on the post and say, hey, I'm actually interested in seeing the live stream, right? Then you're not self-promoting, you're just helping somebody out, right? And anybody that's curious will see that comment, click that link, etc. That is the way around the self-promotion ban issue that I've seen. Depends, right? So it depends on what you're doing. Figure out, I wish I could give like more specific advice. At the end, if I finish this up relatively quickly, would love to give more specific advice for anybody that's working on stuff like this, or has content that they might want to associate with the product. But anyway, that's what I do. That's my little hack. It's just like, oh, great, somebody's interested in the community thing, right? Like somebody in the community gives a heck about what I'm doing. Here's my stuff. Here's a thing that I did. Here's an article that I wrote. Here's the subscribe link, whatever it is, right? But as long as it's not obviously they're helping you out, it's a little like workaround. So, but Reddit is a really, really powerful place, right? It's just tough to get people to convert because people are really picky, but it is a great place to get feedback. So if you have an idea or you made a post or something like that, just asking for feedback works really well. People are always down to give feedback. Mostly, like, it's usually like between positive and negative. It's a like 50-50 split between positive and negative. Some people are just brutal on Reddit. It's really wild. But usually great place to get feedback, great place to get advice about stuff, great place to see what people think, right? And I have converted a good amount out of it. I converted actually for a product recently, and I can show some of that. I'll show that later if anybody's curious. I'm glad you like it, Rohan. But yeah, I posted on Entrepreneur and Entrepreneur Ride Along just to see what people think. And these ones clearly did not do very well, right? They got 1 upvote on this one and 0 upvotes on this one, right? Which means I got a downvote because it starts at 1. So didn't really work that well this time, right? That's fine. Oh well. If it doesn't work a ton of like on one place, you can try posting on a different one. Just experiment with it. But Reddit is the weirdest one. Now on to stuff that makes a little bit more sense. For Twitter, this is really interesting. I personally haven't really used Twitter that much until now, until like the past few months when I started content sharing, because Twitter has a lot of potential to go viral easier, right? And while a few of my things have gotten me like 10, 20 clicks off of Twitter when they go like mini viral, the nice thing about Twitter is it has the retweet function, right? And so people that are interested in your thing can just click a little button to retweet and boom, it shares it to their whole network. Because of that ease of sharing, it becomes a little bit easier if something is really interesting or valuable to spread quicker. And that's why people like Twitter so much. It's very rare that it happens. It does not happen often. It is not a viral machine. Most of my things only get like 3 or 4 likes over the period of like a week that I post them, and like 1 or 2 retweets. Great. I get, whoops. Why is that on? I thought I turned all my on. Sorry about that. But most of the time, it's just like any other social media thing, right? Ideally, if you have an audience on Twitter, that's great. You're always going to do way better. The person that initially kind of taught me this method of launching stuff, this method of using social media, loves Twitter. It's where they get like 99% of all of their traffic and everything, which is really, really weird. For me, I use LinkedIn. LinkedIn works much better. People don't share on LinkedIn though. It's funky. But with Twitter, I do the exact same thing that I did on Reddit. Exact same thing. I link literally in a tweet storm. I always say at the end, a thread, right? How to like launch any agency is easy. Don't overthink it. Here's what's important, a thread, right? And then I literally copy paste every little bit into little tweet bits under the whole thing. I write the entire article out, or at least like 90% of the article in Twitter. And so all of it is there, right? All of it is in front of you. All of the value is on the page directly, right? And at the end, I say like, by the way, we build stuff like this every week, or by the way, I have a blog that does this, or by the way, you can sign up for more highlights or things like that, etc. And I actually link to my website, right? But for the most part, I literally just write the entire thing in Twitter, just like we do with Reddit. But of course, you have to break it up, so it's different. But because all the value is right there, more people are likely to share it, right? And you're going to get more conversions off of, like, let's say if 1,000 people end up sharing it, right? You're going to get, and then like you have a link at the bottom and maybe 20 people click that link out of the 1,000 people that share it. That's still way more than the nobody that's going to care if you just post the link, right? So you share value upfront on whatever platform prefers that kind of thing. And then you convert based off of that, depending on how the platform works. But that's how Twitter works. And it's interesting. So this is what I've been experimenting with. This doesn't seem to work a ton for me, but I, on every single one of these, I got the advice from the person that taught me this to embed my tweets. And that's on a blog, right? That depends on the whole thing, but that's on a blog article. You can only really do that on websites. I'm sure there's probably other like situations where you can do it, but embedding it isn't that hard. You can just go to your Twitter, you go down here and you click embed tweet, right? And it gives you a code or whatever you need to embed it on your site. For Webflow, for a little bit of CMS, let me know if anybody uses Webflow. It was a little bit tricky and I can show you the hack. But it's, you embed this just so you get more Twitter shares, right? So anybody that reads the article, maybe from Facebook or from Reddit, really likes it and has a Twitter account associated with whatever browser they're using, it's easy for them to retweet it, right? Maybe. But because that viral hub seems to be the most important thing, because like Twitter seems to be the most viral thing, putting your Twitter link here, but embedding the tweet always is nice, and then saying, hey, if you think this was valuable, a retweet helps me spread the word, it was super appreciated, right? Something like that. I'm still experimenting with that, but that's a cool little hack that the person that taught me this uses. Depends on your Twitter audience, right? So that's Twitter though. Share the entire thing in a tweet storm. At the end, link to what you're doing, because Twitter doesn't really care about self-promotion, but they do like value up front, and they do like things that are packed with information, because when they retweet that, it shares to their network and people find value in it, right? So that makes sense. LinkedIn, different. You have a limit on what you can post on LinkedIn, and honestly, people on LinkedIn are used to reading articles, so why not just link it? That's my kind of experience. I link it and it works fine for me. I have a decent like LinkedIn audience, so it helps. You could also try making an actual article out of it, like a Pulse article, a LinkedIn Pulse article, and posting it there. But mostly I've just seen like, hey, here's a highlight, like a kind of a clickbaity-ish title, like, this is awesome, this is what we learned, check it out, right? And you link to it. And then use a couple of hashtags. That's worked for me. Works really well in my experience, but I have a large LinkedIn audience already, so it depends. But that's how I use LinkedIn. I'm sure you could experiment with it a whole bunch more. Martin Danner says, do you automate all of that posting? No, I want to, but posting, because it's a different format in every like place, as we go on, you'll see that there's a whole different format for every single place. It's tough to automate that. I've been looking into using a little tool like Zapier or using a little tool like Integromat, some fancy no-code stuff to automate everything, but it's a little complicated right now. I might do that in the future if I really need to save time, but currently, every Monday, I post to a bunch of different places. I get experience experimenting, and until I find the perfect little like equilibrium on every platform, I feel like I shouldn't automate it yet. But it only takes me like 1 or 2 hours every week, and it ends up being really valuable. I get like a ton of people to my website. So, but great question. You could automate it for sure. Heck, you could just pay somebody to do it for you. Just pay an intern or an employee if you really wanted to. So here is a couple of other forums, and these are just literal forums, and it depends on what you do, but usually if you just Google, like for me, it's entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurship forums, right? And then boom, 13 of the best entrepreneur forums and entrepreneur and business forums on the web, right? And then the Fastlane forum pops up, and then Biz Warriors pops up, and those are the two ones that I use. I have Fastlane and Biz Warriors. Here's the downside. I've been banned from subreddits. I've also been banned from Fastlane forum because they said the following reason: spam. I wasn't really spamming, but I was linking to my account, and I believe that's what they count as spam, right? Again, the internet is very, very picky about all this kind of self-promotional stuff, right? And so I'm probably going to go and I'm probably going to try to find, like, I can't do anything. I can't even log out of the thing. You've been banned for the following reason: spam, right? So I might have to figure something else out and maybe make another account if I really want to be a doofus about it. But I'm probably just going to deal with it for now. It's just, if you're too self-promotional, people just hate it and it sucks. So you got to be really, really careful when you're posting in most places on the internet. With social media, who cares? With like actual like communities on the internet, people get really picky. So just be careful with it. I posted all the same stuff over onto Biz Warriors. They love it. It just works fine. This is one of the most recent posts I did. I just, again, copy pasted the entire dang thing into the forum page, right? I just dropped it right there. So all the value is up front, and then right at the end, in this case, I said, let me know if you're interested in seeing it. But in this case, on the Fastlane forum, I always linked to the actual like article and live stream, and they didn't like that apparently. A lot of it posted really well, and they actually like performed really nicely, and I got a ton of comments and a ton of likes, and everybody really liked it. But when everyone wouldn't do well, they would see this spam, and it wouldn't help my reputation, right? It's funny because if your stuff does well, but you still link, people don't care. But if you like link and it doesn't do well, people see it as spam. It's weird. It's a really, really weird kind of thing. Here's another example of a forum. It's called Indie Hackers. Same shtick. Indie Hackers, from all of my experience, does not care. So I just grab the link and drop it in. It took me experimentation to learn that, but I've never had anything negative happen from Indie Hackers. And usually people really are really supportive on this forum, and they're very mature about all of it, and so they really don't care. And if they don't like your stuff, they don't do it. But I still paste the entire dang thing into the editor, right? All of it is up front. Now, here's something a little bit different. This is Product Hunt, and I'm sure you know what Product Hunt is, right? Product Hunt is like an amazing community, right? It's something that I absolutely want a ton of followers on. If I have a ton of followers on the Fastlane forum and Biz Warriors and all that jazz, like, great, it'll help me get a little bit of stuff to my website, but whatever, right? It doesn't really necessarily matter for me. But Product Hunt is literally where everybody else that's launching stuff like I'm doing is, right? So for me, this is just a high priority kind of thing. I experimented with it. I started posting things. They have a little discussion dashboard kind of section, right? And I started experimenting, and nobody gave a heck about any links that I posted. It just wasn't a place that people cared about links. But there was still some discussion going on, and I wanted to be a participant in that discussion. It kind of functions like a miniature social media because there are ways to follow me, right? People can actually follow my profile. That is amazing. If I could get a ton of followers on something like Product Hunt, that is incredible, because anytime I launch something in the future, awesome, right? Huge, right? So very high value for me to gain followers here. Maybe Twitter would be really high value for you, right? In which case you should prioritize it. In this case, I realized that link sharing was not working, right? It just wasn't. Nobody cared about the links that I shared. I was clearly, from when I looked at Google Analytics, not getting any clicks from anything on Product Hunt, and nobody would upvote the stuff that I put links in. So I tried something else. And by the way, I tried this differently. The person that taught me did not recommend using Product Hunt. I just like tried it out, right? You have to, a lot of this is you have to find your own forums. You have to experience what they like and what they don't like before you're going to understand all of it. With Reddit, though, it's pretty consistent. They're just really picky. But for here, I just realized that they just like when people ask questions. I scrolled through a lot of the successful posts, and it was mostly like, what do you do in this situation, right? Or what are tools that you recommend for this problem, or stuff like that, right? So I started asking questions. And so far, I've actually gotten a few followers out of it. And that's really, really cool. And I'm really, really happy about that. So I'm not necessarily able to convert people yet to my stuff, but when I post things, it might be valuable to have followers. So I'm using it like a social media piece and trying to build followers there, but I can't post my existing content there. I just have to post little questions and experiment. Maybe that's worth my time. Maybe it's not. Still experimenting with it, right? but this is still a community that I should be active on for my shtick, right? Because it bleeds into what I do, right? If there was if you're writing a book, right, and you're launching a book, I have a mentee that's launching a fantasy book, right, and she's writing it right now. She's super cool, and she wanted to know how to do a successful launch, right? And I'm like, well, you should start building a community now. And so if she found, let's say, if she found a little niche forum where people launch books, right? And you can get followers on this little forum, and it's kind of like a mini social media, but just for writers, right? Just for writers and a bunch of different things. If she can post there a ton, she can't promote anything, right? Because she doesn't have the product yet. But if she can promote a ton on different kind of things, if you can promote a whole bunch on this little forum / social media kind of thing, and you can build a little bit of an audience there, that's huge, because when you launch your book, finally, event like months in the future or years in the future, however long it takes, it'll help a lot, right? So you should participate in that forum if it's a high priority thing, if it's where people like you go to launch your stuff, right? There are a lot of things like this. So for me, Product Hunt is really valuable because I launch products. For you, something else might be valuable. Maybe it's just Twitter. Maybe it's just LinkedIn because you have a business associated thing, right? Or maybe it's Instagram because you have a photography associated kind of product, something like that, right? Or visual. It depends, right? It totally depends. I wish I could give more specific advice on this, but the best thing that I can do is use kind of myself as an example. I have another little community. There's a little community online called MentorMesh. I know the guy that runs it. He really likes my content. He wanted me to start posting here. Great, right? I found another place that makes sense for my stuff. Awesome. AngelList. AngelList is an online kind of funding thing, but they also recently launched kind of a news place, right? A little news section of their website. Great, I can share links there. Why wouldn't I, right? I had 1 or 2 of these links do like okay, and I got like 2 or 3 clicks. It took me like an extra 3 seconds to post this here. Why would I not do that for some free website traffic, right? Even if it's 1 click per week and it takes me 10 seconds or a minute, I would gladly spend 60 seconds per day to get 1 extra website click. It helps, right? Because they might become a subscriber or something like that, right? So AngelList is another thing, but that's mostly just a link sharing site. And this is where things get a little bit interesting with link sharing sites. The best example for me personally that I've been able to find for link sharing stuff is Y Combinator News, or I think what is it called? It's Hacker News. It's called Hacker News. Hacker News is awesome for me. And I of course have a bias because one of my posts did insanely well here, but Hacker News is awesome for me because it's literally just a link sharing forum, right? For everybody that's interested in tech, entrepreneurship, startups, everything like that. Associates very closely with my stuff, right? And it's very, very popular, right? And people aren't picky because it's just a link sharing site. So as long as your link is relatively interesting, people just click the link and it goes directly to the website. Their entire like community there is like, okay, you're just like sharing your own stuff, right? So they expect you to share your own stuff. So me being self-promotional or being a little bit clickbaity is expected. And it's fine. Nobody's going to kick me off. Nobody's going to get annoyed. It's just going to work out. So it already associates really closely with conversions, which is really great for me. You can find link sharing sites like this. It's awesome, but it depends, right? Certain forums prefer put text posts to link sharing. For this, I think there are certain. I think it's startups. I think it's the startup subreddit. They actually have a link sharing section where you just share a link, and I have yet to experiment with that. I don't know if it worked better or worse or whatever, right? But there are certain sections of the internet that just prefer links instead of actual content. That's fine. That's all the value they want up front. Just post the link, right? Alex sent a message that says, what's your take on collecting emails? Do you find that people give fake emails? So, great question. Collecting emails, there's a few different ways to do that. Let's say like you could, if you really want to be like sneaky about it, I could link to this website and say to view the article, you have to pop in your email, something like that, right? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe that would like push people away from my website. Maybe they would bounce way quicker. Maybe it would get like more email subscribers. But generally, on every single one of my pages on your hub, right, you encourage people to do the thing that's most valuable to you. For me, that's email subscribers. Or things like that, like Twitch or YouTube subscribers, right? Twitch subscribers are great. If you do some follow or subscribe on Twitch, that's where all my live streams are. They're most live there, right? So getting you to do stuff there is awesome for me. Subscribing on YouTube, also awesome for me, right? But the most valuable thing is I get to send you articles every week on the stuff that I do. So ideally, a subscribe thing for me is the best, right? Maybe Instagram followers are best for you. So, and every single one, you should encourage people to, hey, it would be awesome if you want to see more of this, follow me on Instagram, right? Whatever that is, whatever that most valuable conversion is. And no, if you ask, so your question, do you find that people give fake emails? If they wanted to see, my call to action here is, if you want to see more experiments every week, subscribe, right? If they actually want to see more experiments every week, they will give me an email that works, right? Because they want it in their email inbox. If you did the thing where you were like, you can't see this article unless you subscribe, right? Something like that. Then I'm probably going to get a ton of fake emails, maybe just because people want to see it and they don't really care. Who knows, right? But there are ways to block against that. But generally, if you just politely ask if you're interested in seeing more stuff like this, people are going to give you the real credentials. They're going to follow with their real Instagram account. They're going to subscribe with their real email because they genuinely want to see more. Your goal is to find people that genuinely want to see more, right? So if that makes sense, I hope that answers your question. I'm glad that answers your question, Alex. Thank you for the question. It was a good question. But yeah, usually you want to convert, right? Your main hub piece of content should convert. If it's a YouTube video, that converts automatically. If it's a Instagram post, that converts automatically. People will follow you on Instagram or subscribe on YouTube. Great, right? For me, I want email subscribers. That's a bit more consistent than social media, and it's always a good idea to have an email list. So having a subscribe little link is necessary, and it links to a little MailChimp form. So, but here's something really cool. So the nice thing about all of this, right, is yes, occasionally, like every week, if I share really nicely and it's a decently popular kind of topic, I will get anywhere from 50 people to visit my website to like 400 people to visit my website in that week, right? Because when you post these things on Reddit, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on everywhere else, on these forums, on everywhere, you will, over time, over the next weekish period, get some conversions, right? People will see your stuff and they will go to your website. People will slowly kind of see your thing. Usually it's the first day that's the most important for most social media sites. Makes sense. But for forums and most other things like that, it's a more long-term kind of game. And so just waiting a little bit of time to see what people think works really nicely. And so over every week, just from doing this, I get anywhere from 50 to 400 to visitors to my website, right? Depending on how people like it, depending on how well I did the titles and some of the other stuff, right? Awesome. That's super great. Absolutely. Like, even if it was just 50, like well worth the hour or 2 hours that I'm putting in, right? So that's great. But the really nice thing about this is, if you're posting aggressively in all these different communities, you're finding, first of all, you want to find every single community possible that shares your interests or absorbs content and like eats content that you make. Any content remotely similar, you want to find all of it and you want to be there. Even if you're not like Product Hunt, even if you're not posting your stuff and trying to convert it to your stuff, you still want to be active there, because having a following there means good stuff, right? For you in the future. If you're popular on all different places on the internet, by the time you launch your thing, or by the time you do something that needs conversions, you will have communities already everywhere on the internet. Even if they're small communities, all of that will add up. So it's good to be active everywhere that like shares your interests. But here's something really cool. I went mini viral on Hacker News a while ago. It was, what was it? It was like 50 days ago, like many weeks ago. Like 7 weeks ago, I went mini viral. And just because this is a really popular site, right? Hacker News is a really popular site, and it's a link sharing site, so it automatically converts people. All the content isn't here. You have to go to my website to check out the content. Great stuff, right? Awesome stuff. For me, at least. This got, like all these other ones, have like 1 point, 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, right? I'm going to refresh to see if this got any more extra points. No, it just still has 2 points. Usually all my posts get like 2 points, right? Fine. And I usually get, let's check on Google Analytics. Let's see how many people have linked over there so far. Usually I get a good number if I have a decent title and it's kind of interesting, right? So let's see what we have so far. From News at Y Combinator, we have 3, right? And there's some, Google Analytics always messes up, so there's probably 1 more in there. So 3 or 4 people have linked over just from me sharing the link. Awesome. And they're already interested in entrepreneurship. They like the title, how to launch an agency and not get hung up on the stuff that doesn't matter. Super easy, right? These link sharing sites, if you can find them in your space, really nice. But this got 2 points, right? And I got 3 or 4 people to visit my website. How many people do you think got visited my website from 45 points? it went mini viral. And so it showed up, I think, on the second homepage, and I actually got comments on it. None of my other posts have gotten comments on them. This one got 25 comments. Well, it got about like 15, and then I responded to a bunch of them. But from 45 points, getting to the second page, the second homepage on Y Combinator for like an hour. It was really, it was a really short-lived kind of thing. I got, and this is the little page that linked to it, the quickest SEO tutorial. That's what I said, right? And I think it was a super quick rundown on SEO, right? Super simple. I got, and it's just a little article, little link, great. I got 2,000 people to visit my website in one day just from that, right? And that for me is huge, right? That like just seeing that, like, because that, like whether or not they actually subscribe, if you have a website, that boosted my SEO like crazy. Like people now, like I now rank for SEO like keywords, which is insane. It gave me a huge boost in Google's eyes. It gave me a huge boost everywhere. It was unbelievably productive. And I got, I think like 10, it wasn't that many, but I got like 10 email subscribers out of it. It was huge, right? 2,000 people just from 45 upvotes, right? Huge stuff. So if you can find the right forums and you perform well in the right forums, the point of this is like there is a hope to go mini viral, right? For all these little communities, for entrepreneur, ride along for entrepreneur, there is a for Twitter, for LinkedIn, for forums, for anywhere, right? You have the chances to go mini viral. And so finding large communities that agree with what you do or absorb content like what you create is huge, because if you continually post and you learn the communities a little bit more and you get experiments with it and you experiment with it and you do well, and over time you just kind of figure it out, there are chances that you can go viral or mini viral. And that is where things kind of launch off, right? Every content creator on the internet got popular by going mini viral or viral a couple of times, right? Because people see all their stuff, it's a broad interest, people really like it, and then they get their base of followers or subscribers or whatever that start to launch them upwards, right? But every single creator that I've ever like looked into on the internet has that same kind of story, where they were doing fine, they were making content consistently, they were growing relatively consistently, and then something just spikes, right? So this gives you the chance to go mini viral or viral in a bunch of different places all at once. So it increases your chances of going viral. It's just kind of a numbers game, right? But that's more or less it. Here's another link sharing site. Kind of interesting. It's just great. It's a little thing, how to launch your agency. If I click here, it goes to entrepreneur.blog, right? My little website. I have all these tabs saved. So every single week I can just click them and like, boom. And this is a little tool called onetab.com, I think, or it's a little, it's a Chrome extension that I just go and I open all the tabs, and then I save, I click the little one tab thing up in the corner and it just saves all of them, right? So I just have a couple different little things. Like down here, I have all these Facebook groups. I haven't posted in the Facebook groups yet today. It's just grueling. There's the full post where I share all the content, right? So the Twitter, LinkedIn, the forums, the subreddits, all those different things. That's where I share most of the posts, right? I make my own little post, like on LinkedIn Product Hunt. And then link sharing, these are all things that I just link to, right? And so I just have it all saved. I have it all pre-saved, all on my little one tab thing. And so every Monday I hop on and I post as much as I can, right? In all these different places. So was there anything else that I wanted to go over? No, I think that's most of it. I'm sure there might be some questions now, so I'd love to hear some questions. I have a couple other things to go over, like just how SEO works in general, and how this helps. But that's the value of posting on the internet for the most part, right? That is why just aggressively putting stuff out in a bunch of different places on the internet leads to actual conversions. And then that's how you do it. You gotta be careful. You can't self-promote. You just you gotta figure out each little forum, right? You gotta figure out each little place on the internet and how they respond to sharing and how they respond to questions and everything like that. Find what works for you and build a following there, just using your hub content. So you don't have to make new content for every single one.
Thank you, Max. That was awesome. That was just jam-packed full of so much good information. I see that there's a lot of questions that are starting to come in the chat.
Karina says, would it be wise to change the content a bit on each platform forum to make it interesting? If necessary, absolutely, right? For Reddit, sometimes I will chop it down to something a little bit simpler, right? For Facebook groups, I didn't do any Facebook groups posts this time because Facebook has gotten on my nerves lately. I'll write a little bit of a post. I'll say like, hey, this is launching an agency isn't that hard. There's a couple little things. I'll give a little bit of value up front. I'll say, this, and this, right? And I'll make a little like picture post sometimes. I'll make a little picture in Canva that says, like, these are the 3 things that you need to most know about starting an agency, something like that, right? And then at the bottom, I'll link to, by the way, I wrote a full article about this, etc. And that is a different piece of content that I ever share on Reddit. So yes, you should customize it a little bit to each different platform. For like on Facebook groups, I can't post the whole thing. On LinkedIn, I can't post the whole thing. So I have to customize it. I have to change it a little bit, make a little bit of different kind of tweaks to it to make sure it fits what people like, and that it will convert well, and that it just kind of does its job, right? So yes, you should tweak it for sure. Does the day you post make a difference? Great question. I typically just do it on Monday because that works for me. It works in my schedule. This is going to take some time. This is going to take a whole lot of dang time. It's a few hours every week, right? So it's really should revolve around like when you can most do things. On social media, I know it does affect. There are like things that matter. So if on Twitter, you want to do it when most people are on the platform, right? And on LinkedIn, you want to do it when most people are on the platform. For LinkedIn, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday works really well at around like 10 or 11 a.m. I don't really, it doesn't matter a ton. I'm not like, I post other stuff on Tuesdays and then Wednesdays and Thursdays. So for me, just getting it out there and just testing to see what people like is most important to me. I'm probably going to get like 1 or 2 less clicks because I shared it at the wrong time. Probably. You could definitely test. And maybe that's another thing you should test, right? Maybe on Reddit, you really only are going to get clicks if you do it in the middle of the dang night, because most people are just up scrolling Reddit at night. I don't know. You'll have to experiment. Yeah, that's the whole shtick. And actually, this is interesting because on Reddit, look, I can check down here in the bottom. 109 users are here now, right? So maybe you find the top times. Maybe you find the top times when people are most on, right? And you target it then. So you should definitely like experiment with it. Personally, for me, because my schedule is so packed, I just do it when it works for me. But it depends, right? For you, if you really want to maximize every single piece of content that you make, maybe you only make 1 a month, then yeah, target it for different days and different times and different everything. But usually relatively early in the morning, like 10, 9 a.m., not between 9 and 11 a.m. on a weekday works really well for something like LinkedIn. And I would assume stuff like, I don't know, I would just look, you can look it up. I just looked it up on LinkedIn. I said like, when is the best time to post on Twitter, right? And there's going to be 100 articles on that kind of stuff. So you would probably experiment with that, because I can't give advice directly on what would work for eeach platform, but that's something you experiment with. So much value. Thank you. I hope this is recorded because I need to watch again and take more notes. I am super glad, iPhone. I'm super glad you got something from it. Lena says, how important is having graphics for places like Twitter, which don't necessarily need them? Is it worth spending the time for extra engagement? Great question, Lena. So for Facebook, the person that taught me this said that usually they use pictures for Facebook, right? And I can show you some of the other stuff that I've done. So I'm going to go to Canva. Some of the stuff that I have done, all my designs for in the past, just to kind of show, here's an example, right? A little branded, super simple thing. Toss a landing page up on card, put a buy now button at the bottom, link it to a type form. This is just me teaching people how to build landing pages, right? And this is what I posted on all the Facebook groups first. And this did actually really well. And then at the bottom, I link to entrepreneur.blog or @entrepreneur for my Twitter, right? Just like a little subtle kind of tweak, right? Like it makes it look a little bit more important. Be careful with this, but generally this is the strategy that the person that taught me this uses. Very successful marketer. But yes, for Facebook groups, it seems to work really nicely. Graphics are really nice. Occasionally, I will put like thumbnail images, like how to launch an agency, right? With a little bit of like bubbles around it to make it look kind of cute and then a little bit like colorful. Sometimes I'll put those on my website so there's a thumbnail image, but usually the thumbnail image ends up being more like interruptive than it does anything else. So for at least the places that I post, right? So I tend to not do them. But for Facebook groups, I have seen it work really well. Usually my Facebook posts in groups work really nicely if there's a graphic that's unique, right? Because then it's not obviously just a link and people see possibly more value in it. If you were sharing it somehow on Instagram, you need a graphic, right? So that makes sense. But great question. So graphics work for Facebook groups, and then you have to experiment, because usually I don't think for anything else I like the graphics, but it could be. So it takes like an extra, honestly, the pictures that I make, like how much extra time does it take? It took me like 5 minutes to whip this sucker up. So if I'm going to get way more engagement on it across like 80 Facebook groups that I post to, why not? Right. So in that case, it's usually valuable for me. But it depends. I think you would have to experiment with it. But for me, it works. Yes. For certain groups. Ray asks, besides the SEO topic, is there a reason why you think that post did so well virally? I have absolutely no clue. and I feel everybody that I've ever talked to on virality, everybody that's had stuff go viral, it's just so random because there are thousands of people viewing this every day. There are thousands of different like ways for it to go. There are thousands of different ways that people kind of interpret things. I think a super quick rundown on SEO makes people think, oh, I can learn a bit about SEO really quickly, right? Maybe that's a little bit easier because it's clearly less of a time commitment. So maybe people liked it because of that. But generally, I have absolutely no clue. And that's part of this. It's just putting as much out as you possibly can in kind of a luck system, because it's playing the numbers. If you post a ton of stuff, eventually somebody's going to like something. And if you experiment enough, eventually you're going to hit it on the nose with something unique, right? But I have no idea why I did so well. I've tried to imitate it and mimic it every single time, right? If it worked really well one time, I want that to happen every single other time. It just doesn't. So it just takes experimentation. But yeah. Any other questions? Any other comments, concerns?
All right. No other questions? Well, I would, sorry, do we have another question in there?
No, it's Rohan.
Okay, sounds good. So I look like Rohan has asked everybody to
Yeah, that's what we went to this morning.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know about for the bike though.
Kevin, you're not on mute. So let me.
Yeah, because there are a lot of like, I don't know, like drop. Yeah.
Kevin, you're not on mute. Let me mute you. Okay, there we go. So everybody, looks like we're all finished up here. If there's no other questions, I would like to once again thank Max so much for attending. Rohan has put a survey in the chat, so please do go in there and answer the questions to that survey. And thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate it, and we will see you again at the next workshop.
Just two more things. There's another question in the chat, and we would really appreciate if everyone can turn on their cameras for a screenshot.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Let's
Good
do it.
reminder.
All right. So
yes. For Alex's question, who would you say has influenced you on to learn all this, and who do you recommend we should listen to? So actually, person that taught me this, before I stop screen sharing, was Marketing Examples. I didn't necessarily learn this from anybody specific. This is just I did learn it for somebody specific. What is it? /content/sharing. But I learned all this from an article, and like also my personal experimentation. But here's the article. It's marketingexamples.com. That makes sense for me. I was just recommended that article by a bunch of different people all at once because it clearly has some great info in it, right? It doesn't go over everything. I can link to it if you want. It doesn't go over everything. I made my own. I had to experiment with it before I got like the full kind of details of how all this functions. But Harry Dry at Marketing Examples is a good person if you want to check out Marketing Examples. But generally, it's just experimentation that I learned most of this stuff through.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you for sharing, Max. Okay, so if everybody wouldn't mind turning on your screen, your cameras rather, we're going to take one picture of all of us here together. So if you could turn on your cameras, and I will go ahead and take a screenshot. So 3, 2, 1, make sure to smile. You don't have to if you don't want to. And then I'm going to take one more picture because we couldn't fit everybody in one actually, because there's so many. And then 3, 2, 1, and cheese. Oh, thank you all for coming. Thank you for the photos. We're going to end the workshop there. Do you want to take us out, Max, with just a sum up sentence?
Yeah, absolutely. So I experiment every week. It does not take that long to experiment with stuff. I learned this in essentially a week because I tried it, right? If you see somebody doing something really cool on the internet that seems to convert, why not give it a shot, right? It takes an extra little few hours for one day. If you give it a shot, you might learn an entirely new skill that you can then present to a class, right? Like it did not take me that long to to learn this, but it did take I've done it for a couple months now. And so I have a bit more experience with it so I can give a presentation on it. But like, this is a valuable skill that I just learned from like, asking a couple of marketers and reading an article, right? So why not try something? You're going to learn a ton more than anybody else knows on the topic if you actually go and try something that you read or hear or get advice on. So just start trying stuff. It does not take as long as you think. Dedicate a weekend day or a Saturday or whatever and give it a shot. You'll learn a ton of really cool stuff. So.
Great advice. Thanks as always, Max. I love your workshops. Thank you, everyone. We will see you at the next workshop. Take care.
Thank you.
Mark.